Welcome back, Michael Lynch, and this is the Men Seeking Freedom podcast. But we are not just a podcast, we are a brotherhood, and we attract men that want deeper relationships than they currently have, and they want conversations with other men that are going to help them grow personally and professionally. One thing I've learned in life and in business, you can try to do everything on your own. You go farther and faster when you have a brotherhood, in this case, working with you. Excited today. We love bringing women into the Men Seeking Freedom podcast. And I want to introduce Alison Simmons, founder and CEO of Lead Smarter Co., someone who I've met recently via LinkedIn because Allison is based in Texas. And I had done some outreach to her, and she came back to me with something she wanted to talk about. And I was like, oh my God, we've got to cover that. So, Allison, welcome. Thank you. And first of all, just tell us a little bit about who you are and Lead Smarter Co.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's funny, you get asked to be on podcasts, and then when someone's like, hey, you want to be on a Freedom Brotherhood podcast? And I'm like, but wait, I'm so confused. Isn't it for men? But I respect the fact that in order to help men grow, you're like, they need a woman's perspective because we are created differently. We are wired differently. And for men to understand where women are coming from and how we perceive things and how we think is only going to help. So thank you for allowing me to be part of the conversation to start with. Yeah. So I always start any speaking engagement with a disclaimer. I'm an Italian Enneagram 8 from Jersey, which means I talk loud, I talk fast, and I always talk with my hands. And that just sets the tone for what's about to come.
That's all allowed. That's all allowed here.
That's all allowed. You might gather very quickly, I'm a very strong personality. My mom always said that I'm the kind of person that walks into a room and like sucks the oxygen out of it because I take it all up, which has made being married to a very strong-willed man quite an adventure. Speaking of adventure, we did actually just come out of 2.5 years of RV full-time lifestyle with 3 of the 5 children that we have. And people were like, how did you not kill each other? And I'm like, on the contrary, our marriage is stronger than ever because you have to learn to resolve conflict when you're in an RV. There is nowhere to hide. And so we learned to communicate. We learned to let go of things that just didn't matter. And we learned how to do the dishes because there is no dishwasher in an RV.
Can't you just you can't open the door and throw them outside and hope the rain will wash it?
You can't even buy paper plates to store them because there's nowhere to store paper plates. So
first,
you've
okay,
got your 5 plastic plates and you have to wash them after every meal.
So we're going to pump the brakes just for a minute. Number one, I love having a strong personality female. I know women come in all shapes and types and sizes, but I'm just saying somebody is going to be engaging in this podcast is going to be like, oh, this is going to be interesting. Someone who's got however you refer to that type of personality. But now that and then also with what you just said, your story reminds me a bit of Matthew McConaughey in Green Lights, who's lived a very interesting life and done a lot of interesting things. And what you did, I'm only bringing it up because what you did with 3 of your 5 kids and your husband is kind of like a Matthew McConaughey kind of thing. Did you start that strictly with the goal of being adventure?
Okay, so this actually leads perfectly into what I said in my form when I said I wanted to be on your podcast. So my husband was running a business of his own. After we got married, when I had my 3rd child, I had been a high school math teacher. We decided it was time for me to just stay home with kids, raising kids. And we had 2 more kids after that. And while I was pregnant with kid number 4, he started his own business. He was a tool man. And I'm now at home with 4 kids. And not homeschooling. Oh my gosh, no. But I had 4 kids, 2 little ones and 2 in grade school. And he's running his own business. And as any man who's ever started their own business knows, it's the grind. Like you're up before the sun comes up and no one else is awake, and you don't come home until late. And if you do come home, you're still working long after everyone else is in bed. And so for 10 years, including the fifth child, I was basically raising five kids by myself. And being a highly ambitious woman, I really struggled with just being a stay-at-home mom. And I air quote that because there's nothing wrong with being a stay-at-home mom. But for me, it was very hard. And so there was a lot of conflict in our marriage during that time because I felt like I had skills that were not being utilized and I had a brain that was not being challenged. And he, meanwhile, is just desperate to provide for his family and he wants to be a success. And I will have never met a man who works harder than my husband. And so to him, failure is not an option. And so, in a very typical traditional husband wife role, he's out there day in and day out thinking, I am sacrificing my joy to work so that I can put food on the table for my family. And my wife's at home all day, drinking coffee with her friends, having play dates. I'm at home thinking, oh my gosh, he gets to get out of the house and away from these kids for 5 minutes. I'm wiping butts and, cleaning up another mess again. Like I'm sick and tired of living this trapped life. And so we spent a decade in that, not really communicating. And, there were moments that were good, of course, but I would say there was a lot more struggle and frustration because neither one of us could see the other person's perspective. We only saw the stuff that we were sacrificing and not what we were gaining from the other person.
Boy, just that part of what you're saying probably would have led a scary number of people to just, as I like to say, 1-800-lawyers type of thing. So some things, which I'm sure you'll get into, have allowed you to say to yourself, okay, for as much as this is not a glorious feeling and looking time of your life, something kept you seeking more.
Yeah, reconciliation. Yeah. We're both Christian. And so, we made a vow before God that we would not divorce. Does not mean we didn't come extremely close multiple times. But thankfully we were part of a church and I raised the white flag on a couple of different occasions in our marriage. And we got really excellent counseling and intervention multiple times, where we actually had one woman come in and she babysat all five kids so that we could go to counseling. She came in once a week, literally
Wow.
for free, because we didn't have money to spare, just so that we could go to counseling. And so we were in counseling our 5th year of marriage. We were in counseling again during our 8th year of marriage. And then in our 12th year, we didn't actually get counseling, but things almost fell apart. And thankfully, our old counseling kicked in. And the Lord was like, no, we're
Wow.
gonna reset here. So there were 3 different times where it almost all went to pieces.
Wow. That's I'm this is such an important area for me in terms of, it says Freedom Brotherhood behind me. It's the Men Seeking Freedom podcast. And one of the things this community believes in, we believe in marriage.
Mm-hmm.
We understand that marriages are challenging and have their issues and all that stuff. And I want to make certain, and this is a good conversation, that the more realism we have about, yeah, it got ugly in whatever form, but there were things that kept us together. I'm glad you bring up church, which is kind of debatable in terms of the audience here as to whether faith plays a role in their life. One of the overall curiosities within this community is, what are people who are working hard to make it happen through trials and tribulations? What are they doing? So thank you for kind of walking through that.
Yeah.
So go back. Okay, so you still haven't answered my question though. What was the goal of the journey across?
The RV life. Oh, I was right. I was leading up to that. Okay. So he had been doing his business for 10 years. Kid number 5 has now gone into kindergarten, and I'm home for 8 hours a day, suddenly feeling freedom that I've never had. And I was like, babe, I want to get a job. Now, through the 10 years that I was at home raising all these kids, I always had somewhat of a side hustle. Whether it was a blog, a podcast, I was selling cleaning products. Like I always did something because I had to just keep my sanity. And so I learned a ton of marketing skills. I learned how to run a Facebook group. I learned how to sell in the DMs, like all of these skills. So he and I talked about it, and he was like, I would rather you not get a job outside of the home because out of 5 kids, there's always going to be someone who is sick. There's going to be a conference. There's going to be an athletic event. So he was like, could you get something where you could literally work online? And so I became an online business manager. And that was my original online business, was working for people to help them manage their businesses using all of the knowledge that I self-acquired over a 10-year period. And I was not but 3 months into my first client, and he walks in the door early from work. I can see him walking up from the driveway. And I was like, oh gosh, it's 1 p.m. He should not be home right now. He comes in, he sits down calmly at my desk, and he goes, what if I got out of my business tomorrow and we sold everything we owned, bought an RV, and started traveling across the country? And I looked at him and I was like, he's hit a breaking point. I've literally been in prayer for 4 years that he would get out of his business, and God decided to answer it with this insane whatever. But I was like, you know what, babe? If that's what you want to do, I'm in. Like, let's do it. Like, to me, seeing him as miserable as he had been for so long, it was one of those moments where I was like, I will do whatever it takes to get you onto the other side of what's making you miserable. And for him, it was 10 years in a business that just sucked the life out of him. And I was like, God's brought us this far. Let's see what happens next.
Let's hold your thought there for a second. People engaging in this podcast are, if it's the men, or it could be either, are in careers that suck the life out of them, but due to no fault of anyone, conditions of how they were raised and values and all that. You don't. So now you just presented something that is like at the exact opposite end of the spectrum. What's refreshing is what you and your husband did with your family is obviously not for everyone, but is an inspiration to know that is available for some. So thank you. Continue on, please.
And I would say this for the men that feel trapped and it's like, I can't stop what we're doing because it'll change our lifestyle. Like, we drastically, obviously changed our lifestyle. But I think that if I could just, from a wife's perspective, if a man were to come home and say, I am tired of missing kids' games on Saturdays. I'm tired of coming home and kissing them goodnight before they go to bed, and that's the best I see them. What if I were to change my career in some way where I were home more, but we made less money? Would you be willing to sacrifice? What would you be willing to sacrifice? I would bet you will find women who were like, sell the cars. We went down to, well, we had one vehicle, right? Like, get down to one vehicle. We don't need to go on vacation this summer. We'll take our daughter out of gymnastics. Our son doesn't have to play baseball. Like, how can we cut our expenses from all of the niceties that we're used to so that you can actually be a dad who's involved in our family, because I want you more than I want all of the things. I'm not saying every woman is like that, but I think more women would probably be willing than their husbands think.
That's one of those things, Allison, where it's almost like people like need permission to be honest. I'm saying that kind of facetiously I call this men seeking freedom. And every person I talk to in life, including this podcast, proceeds to tell you a little bit about themselves that defines freedom. So as you just laid that out, well, what if we did this and that, another thing, that's how you define, that's freedom. That's like a magnet that we sometimes can actually intentionally resist, unfortunately. But I believe as you're explaining this, I believe our souls are magnetically connected to what we define as freedom. And it's an interesting word because everybody can define it differently.
Yeah. Yeah. What does it look like for you? So for me and for my husband at that time, he needed freedom from the stress of that business. And I was willing to sacrifice the life we had built for him to have that. It at that point in our marriage meant more to me. And like I said, pre-show, 2.5 years later, we didn't kill each other. In fact, we've never been stronger because we were forced to learn to communicate and resolve conflict. You have to get over yourself because you have no choice. There's only so much room in a 37-foot camper, which is a very big camper. It's still not that much room. So
it's almost as if any couple who's contemplating separation should have to take at least a 1-year RV trip, just to, who knows, maybe it would accelerate things. But in your case, see, the part that's interesting to me in this, and maybe you went through here's a key thing we're overlooking: intimate conversation. You two really got down and dirty on would you consider this? Are you willing to do this? Okay, let's do this differently. That to me that's intimately connecting with each other, when a lot of people run from that level of communication.
Yeah.
But I still keep thinking about you. You had to have this. I don't know if you looked at it this way. So as you're embarking on this and getting closer together, and what was it fulfilling a specific vision you saw? What was it that you were ultimately seeking from that? Or was it not that formal?
For me, it was my husband's joy. For him, it was freedom from the pressure that his business had put on him. I mean, that's as best as I can guess because I'm not in his head. But for me, I just wanted my husband to be happy and involved in his family. And so, here we are 3 years later. And I mean, I joke, I literally posted this the other day on Facebook. He'll kill me for sharing it. But I literally was joking. I was like, here I am tapping away on my computer early in the morning, and he just walks in and fills my coffee and takes away my muffin plate. And I'm like, oh my gosh, my husband spoils me rotten. He's like, oh, I'm just used to it by now. It's a habit. But he serves me literally in these small, tiny ways that he never could before. And it's because we just have such a different relationship, a different marriage. He takes the kids to school. He picks them up from school. He's the one that goes to the away softball games, not me. It's just, he's so much more involved in our family. And that is so much more joyful than us having the big house and the fancy cars and the money, that for him is joy. And to me, there's nothing better than my husband being happy.
Well, I'm glad you said, yeah, because I was going to say, it's great that you were so conscious of fulfilling his joy, but we live in a selfish world.
Yeah.
You still have to look at it from what's in it for Allison? But what sounds like you're saying, you were able to feel joy by experiencing his. Is that, or seeing his?
Ultimately, yes. Yeah. I will not say that every minute of RV life was joy. There were definitely, about 1.5 years in, I'm looking at him cross-eyed going, oh my gosh, are we going to get out of this RV anytime soon? For sure. I won't pretend. I was like, oh my gosh, every minute of this is blissful because my husband's happy. He wasn't always happy. If you want to talk about, being transparent, right? But, when I look back and here we are on the other side of that journey and the conversations, now we're buying a new house. And it's like, well, we could have a really nice house at this price point, or we could have something smaller that we renovate over time at this price point. I want to move into the super nice hot tub, jacuzzi, give it to me. I want the really nice thing. And he's like, Allison, that's not financially responsible right now. I have a good job, but right. And so okay, you're right. And this is, and again, I shared this pre-show in our marriage, he's the leader, right? And it's not that he doesn't consider my desires. It's not that he doesn't ask my opinion. In fact, he does so much more now than he ever did before, mainly because I say, this is what I want. But you know what, babe, if you don't think it's what's best for our family, I'm going to trust you and I'm going to follow your lead. He hasn't steered us wrong yet because his mindset is constantly what's best for my family. And so I just have to trust him. I trust that God is leading him. And ultimately it's made such a difference in our marriage.
So this is a wonderful story. What's popping into my head now is, what were the circumstances of how you met? And was it instant love, or was there more? Yeah, I'm always curious as to how
No,
people.
this is so funny. I'm glad you asked. So it's actually a really funny story. So we met because of church. So I have a previous marriage. My first two kids are from my previous marriage. And I had just found I was getting a divorce and had literally just found out I had to sell my house that I was living in. And the pastor's wife, I was crying at church and she invites me to come over after church for lunch. Separately, my husband, who is 7 years younger than me, is a whippersnapper Marine. And he was visiting the church, and the pastor sees this young single Marine and was like, "Hey, why don't you come over to our house today for lunch?" Totally separate. Neither pastor nor pastor's wife knew that they were inviting anyone to lunch. I show up at their house after lunch and I see this huge, beat up, red lifted truck with tires that are larger than my toddlers. And I'm like, who the heck is at their house for lunch? And I walk in and there he is sitting on the couch, and my heart just completely like flip flop. He didn't say a word to me the entire lunch. They didn't even introduce us formally. It wasn't even like, "Hey, Joel, me, Allison." No, nothing. Like super awkward. But that was how I officially met him. And then we started dating about a year later. So, and I was like, the moment I saw him, I knew. And he, like, I didn't even hit his radar. Like, I'm a divorced woman with two kids, like, whatever. So
Yeah,
it's just crazy.
Allison, I like to kiddingly say to people, my next day in psychology school will be my first one in terms of formal education.
Yeah.
But I'm just unpacking that story, and the wannabe psychologist in me says, okay, big ass truck, and however you want to characterize someone who is not either animated or social enough, or I'm not trying to take a
Right.
shot at it, but, and I'm like, oh, I wonder what did that end up, what did you end up learning about him from his truck and your initial
Oh,
impression of him?
he was the only cowboy from California I'd ever met, right? Like he grew up in Northern California in the Redding area, very rural area. He grew up a cowboy for all intents and purposes. And I grew up in New Jersey, right? I'm not a city girl per se, but I'm like a suburban girl. So to me, it was like this very interesting dynamic. He was nothing like anybody I had ever encountered. And he was good looking. I'm just gonna say it. He was hot.
That
Yeah.
that never hurts, right? That's got to be factored in. Um, go in terms of the RV time. What would
Yeah.
you say you learned the most about yourself? I mean, you've touched on it a little bit, but
Yeah.
what did you learn the most about yourself, as well as what did you learn the most about the relationship you were in?
About myself, I am not a good homeschool mom because I did have to homeschool. I'm not a good homeschool mom. I am a former teacher. I teach other people's kids great. I cannot teach my own. It frustrates me. No, I learned about myself that as much as I am a people person and I am an extrovert, I can't stand having people near me all the time. And so in the RV, we're on top of each other all the time. And so one of the things that my husband got very used to is being like, "Hey, babe, I know it's just on the other side of the door, but why don't you go in the bedroom, shut the door? I'll stay out here with the kids." And he would play Xbox or he would play marbles or he would whatever. But we discovered very quickly, and something that I think I knew when I had little kids, like I was raising the five kids at home and they're just clawing at you all the time, but I couldn't get away because he wasn't home to help me with that. He, in that time, was like, "You need space. Go in the other side of that door, put some earbuds in where you can't hear us, and disappear." And I learned that about myself because you would have thought as an extrovert people person, I wouldn't need that. No, I definitely needed that. About our relationship, like I said, I mean, I think I just presumed a lot of stuff about the way he thought. And when you're living in such close proximity, you really see people's actions. And I was like, oh, he did that, but the motive behind what I was assigning to that isn't real. There was a lot of motivation that again, traditional Christian marriage. Well, I'm the man, you're the woman, I'm the provider, you stay home. That was never his motivation. That was never the way he was. But I had put that in my head for years because we weren't close enough to force communication. In that 2.5 years, because we were together so much and we talked more, I was like, oh, you're not threatened by me making money. Oh, you're not threatened by me talking to a man on a podcast, right? Like, he's not threatened by my relationships with other people. But I had convinced myself of that for years because I'd never talked to him about it. And so I think I learned more about his motivations that were real compared to what I thought they were.
I think the RV trip and the timing is kind of a metaphor for, again, there's people engaging with this podcast who are in distant, intimately challenged relationships. No judgment being made toward anybody. I'm a divorced man, and I'm just listening in metaphorizing, thinking, what in a perfect world, knowing that people aren't going to do what you and your husband did, but it's almost like, but what can, and this is speculation, I'm not asking you to have a firm answer, but what can people do to have their own RV experience of discovery of who a person really is without getting into a vehicle for years? And I understand there's counseling, and I'm a huge advocate of counseling, but I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. The key to the story is you allowed yourself to get into a situation that allowed that level of bonding to occur.
I think, and I don't know how people could make it happen in their unique situation, but I think for me, and I can't speak for Joel because I'm not him, but for me, I was so much more willing to hear what he had to say when he served me in a way that he hadn't before. And I joke about the pouring me coffee, but the fact is that my husband will make a pot of coffee and pour me a cup before he pours himself a cup. Little things like that. And I'm naturally like, he doesn't need to do it, but he chooses to do it. And I think that as a wife, to see my husband do these tiny little things that he knows make me happy, it softens me to hearing the things where he's like, no, babe, you can't have, the $750,000 house. That's outrageous. We're not having that conversation. You know what I mean? Like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? It doesn't always work out that nice. But the point is that I think that years of him doing these little micro acts of service have made such an impression on me that's made the bigger, harder conversations easier to have.
Did you have your husband read The 5 Love Languages?
Oh, no.
Do you know that book?
I do. I've read it. He doesn't do those books.
Okay.
He doesn't do self-help books, right?
Yeah, but
I read them.
But here's the irony with me. I love to read. I read that after I got my divorce. I'm just taking it from the perspective whether he's honoring the theme of the book. I don't know if that's your primary love language, acts of service, or not.
Actually, no.
It's not. Oh, really? Okay, but he's dialed into at least whatever part of your makeup that cares about the acts of service.
Yeah. No. Well, so here's the thing. What I'll go to is actually where I think what he and I both have dove into. So again, go back to the Bible for us in Ephesians chapter 5. It talks about to husbands to love your wives as if you would love your own body and to sacrifice for them as the way Christ sacrificed for the church. And wives, respect your husbands as the leaders of your home. My husband wants my respect. I want him to love me. And we get them the wrong way. He sees respecting me as love, and I see loving him as respect. And it's like, but that's not it. Men think of respect very differently. They can respect someone they hate. As a woman, I'm like, it's love. So it's that kind of thing where we go, and he loves me the way I want to be loved, and I respect him as the leader the way he wants to be respected.
I just finished Modern Masculinity by Dr. Stefan Polter. He said, you just said something I posted this a week or two ago online. Men, I'd never even thought about this until you just reminded me. Men
Yeah.
want to be respected more than loved. Not at the expense of being, they want that too. And it wasn't until I guess I just had never really thought about things. I totally agree with it. And it's kind of funny that you're referencing that now. So, well, let's move ahead. So when I first spoke to you months ago, I think it was post RV. It was settling into the great state of Texas.
Yep.
And so now you're into this phase of your life with your 5 kids total, your husband, you having your career now. Give us an update on relationally with all you've been through. What's the current state, including talking a little bit about your business too would be helpful.
Yeah.
But yeah, what are your we talk a lot about male roles in
Mhm.
Men Seeking Freedom in the Brotherhood.
Yeah.
How are your roles these days?
So it's funny. So I mentioned this earlier. So he has taken on so much more of the lift with the kids. He's doing all of the school runs, a lot of the sports stuff, I still take care of doctor's appointments and that kind of thing. But so in our relationship, he's doing a lot more. We joke about him being Mr. Mom, right? He does so much more of that. He works for a large company as an account rep. And so he works from home sometimes and out of the home. I'm 100% at home. And so I have the big office, right? Like he's on a desk in the bedroom. Allison has the big office, right? With the 4 screens and the extra lighting and the microphone, right? And he's in the bedroom with a virtual background, like so no one sees the bed.
I wish I could do polling right now on the people watching. Go, hey man, how are you feeling about that setup?
Right.
But no, go ahead.
As we look to buy a new house, one of the things that he continually is like, where will Allison's office be? Where will Allison work? Allison, are you willing to sacrifice an office and work out of a bedroom for the next 6 months until I can build you space? Like, you know what I mean? Like, so now we're having conversations where I 100% trust that if he tells me I need you to survive at a desk in the bedroom for 6 months and I will build you something so that budget wise we can make it happen, I'm not going to argue that. Like, yeah, I trust you. Thank you. I know that you want me to have what I have now, but you're going to make it somewhere else. And so I don't know if that really answers the relationship question so much, but
Well,
that's where that is at this point.
well, I think, yeah, one of the things I wanted to get to was, did he go back into a work mode once you'd settled in down there? So obviously he has.
Yes.
And so you touched on it earlier. You were the person raising the children. You were the person surviving the RV journey. My gut, even the first time I spoke to you, was you seem like a natural entrepreneur, and you kind of touched on some of the things that you did kind of out of the gate. You have an interesting story of, you're not the traditional career gal, but with a strong sense of business skills and desire to lead and all that stuff. Where do you think was that something that was just always innate in you? Did you have influences in your life that helped lead you to this business that you're in?
Yeah, oh, for sure. I mean, I was, this was a good thing and to my detriment from my own selfishness, not my mother's fault. But I was raised by a very passive mom who was afraid of her own shadow as a young woman. And when she had 3 daughters, she raised them to be the opposite. You are a woman, here you roar. Like, you go conquer the world. And so we joke that she literally lived vicariously through her 3 daughters, right? Because she pushed us to do things that she never had the guts to do on her own as a young woman. Now, as she's gotten older, I mean, she's 79 now, and I don't think there's a thing she couldn't do. She's over there conquering the world in New Jersey right now. But so I was raised very much like, there is nothing you can't do. So long as you try hard, you learn and you don't give up. And so that in and alone of itself is an entrepreneurial spirit. Like, try again, fall down 50 times, get up 51. That's how I was raised. So now, to my detriment, to a point of being a little bit prideful and a little bit like feeling like I was being oppressed because I had to be a stay-at-home mom. I don't think I embraced motherhood when I had little kids as much as I might have, had I not felt like if you're not conquering the world, you're not really doing what you should be doing as a woman. Like you're letting down, the women's whatever. And I think there's a lot of women my age, I'm in my mid 40s now. I think there's a lot of us that were raised that way by women who grew up in the 60s, right? And so they felt like I have to have a career and be a mom. And if I'm not both perfectly, I'm a horrible person. And I struggled with that immensely, immensely.
What's interesting about that? The whole premise of Men Seeking Freedom is getting men to articulate feelings and emotions and bond with men and bring things to the surface. And what you're reminding us is women deal with their own sets of expectations, whether they're healthy, unhealthy, good, bad, whatever. And geez, don't you, Allison, isn't half the battle in life is someone had said to me with this movement, men want to be comfortable with who they are, not known strictly for what they do. And just so as you've pushed the envelope on stereotypes. Yeah. God bless you, as every human being. I wish every human being had the composure to do something like that. But so let's go up to, so you are now the founder and CEO of Lead Smarter Co. What makes you great at what you do?
Oh, my tagline is not bossy, just aggressively helpful. And I could just leave it there.
So they get sense of humor.
That's my secret sauce. No, the joke is, and so I am a natural leader, and that trait in me it's been cultivated for years and years and years. And even when I don't mean to lead, I volunteer for a group, I just end up leading it because I have ideas and I'm able to get people on board. I'm not persuasive in a manipulative way, but I get very excited. I am a very energetic person and I'm a magnet. People are very attracted to what I have to say. And then they're like, I didn't want to do it, but now I do. Now, because you said it, I want to do it, right? And so that's kind of what happened with me being this online business manager. I basically ended up running 4 other businesses. 4 other people hired me as their OBM and then essentially handed me their business and said, you do it so well, I'm going to go over here and do something else. And the pressure crushed me. I wasn't sleeping. The deadlines were crazy. And meanwhile, we're still adventuring, right? And I'm on a road trip for 16 days with my family. All of my clients were well aware. They had their to-do list, right? They weren't supposed to contact me. 2 companies literally did nothing without me, did nothing for 2 weeks, as if they had never run their own business. And then the 2 others were in my face the whole time. And I'm getting phone calls and emails. And I had literally had one woman hire a new team member and then tell me I had to onboard said team member from my phone in the car while my husband is driving us between locations. And I was like, this has got to stop. Like, I'm no longer leading myself. I'm leading everybody else's businesses, but I'm not leading myself, my family, my team, other things. So that's when I started to shut down that business and started Lead Smarter Co. And so basically now I teach people how to be leaders in their own business better than they've been doing it. And I do that combined with AI, because for me, AI was a lifesaver when I didn't have a lot of time. I had to learn how to use AI for more than just crappy captions, right? Like I'm using it to run systems. I'm using it to develop strategies. And now I teach people how to lead their businesses better, their team better. That's how it all kind of evolved.
Love it. Love it. Because just that goes, I was talking about the buckets that we cover here, career. I believe we live in a time where more and more people, men and women, are going to become entrepreneurs. And I always like to hear the story. So, okay. So we're going to wrap up here with, how long have you guys been married?
We just celebrated 16 years the other day. Oh, and here, I don't know if people are watching a video, but he bought me a new ring because I crushed my other diamond accidentally. This one's totally fake. We got it for $25 from an antique store because we're trying to buy a house. And I'm like, babe, I don't want you to buy me a new diamond ring. I would rather keep that money in savings for the house. So this one's really pretty though. It looks real.
It almost poked me in the eye, and we're 1,000 miles away.
Right? The big fake diamond on here. It's huge.
But you guys must love each other if you'll do stuff like that. I mean, what a it's as a divorced man, I am a student of what are people in what I deem good relationships that are going to sustain. What are they doing? I love to read about relationships. And I'm a little bit envious of the fact that you can have that much fun, so to say, but just because it's like, well, listen, I don't need to be that materialistic when I see us both wanting something else.
Yeah.
You know?
We have dreams together now. For 10 years, we had different dreams. And I think the RV life, that's 2.5 years, our dreams sort of finally melded, and now we're finally headed in the same direction side by side.
The D word. One of the things I want to play out in the brotherhood element of this community is men openly speaking about dreams and aspirations as well as fears and vulnerabilities. Men can be, it's interesting, anyone can be very successful and still negligent toward their dreams in terms of how much consciousness they give to it, how much they share it with a partner.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes people laugh at other people's dreams, you know, that kind of thing. So good for you. I think that's a great lesson for people watching and listening to this is from a relational perspective. I've learned this the hard way. From a relational perspective, the more you can be secure enough with each other to lay it out on that level of, hey, this is what I dream of us doing. There's the chance you could get some repercussion of, well, I don't know if I see her. I don't know if you go.
I'll say this. This is funny you should say that, because his dream, this is going to sound silly. Like I do laugh, but only because he's so funny about it. He wants to actually get out of the corporate job he's in now, and he wants to start a nut business, roasted nuts. So, and that's because we went to, I don't know, a fair or something years ago, and there was a roasted nut cart, and he's, I want to do that. Now, that is what he wants to do. That is his dream. We talked about it, and I'm like, babe, I love having health insurance. We need to get a mortgage, right? Like, I'm being practical. And he's like, well, duh. He's like, I'm not going to do it now. He's like, I'm just telling you about it. So the best part is like, where years ago that would have started a fight, because I'm like, that's not practical, that's not whatever. Now I'm like, no, that's his dream. And I'm like, let's make it happen. Let's make my business successful enough so that you could start a nut business and we don't even need the income, right? Like, it would be so awesome. But like, I know that's his dream. He's not going to do anything financially irresponsible that's going to jeopardize our family. But he has a dream, and now I know about it. And my goal is to help him fulfill that dream.
You got beyond the part of knocking the other person down over what a stupid idea. That's right. You tell him when he becomes the nut tycoon, I want to feature him on the Men Seeking Freedom podcast, because boy, that'll be about his freedom of story. First of all, he's invited on if he ever wants to anyway, because his side of this whole story is, would be interesting to men as well. Allison, for the folks who've, I hope many people have enjoyed every bit of this, but how could people hear more about you, learn more about you, both personally and your business? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
LinkedIn is my platform of choice. So find me. You can actually do leadsmarterco.com/LinkedIn. And it will take you to my LinkedIn profile. And then the other thing you can do is, if you subscribe to my LinkedIn newsletter, The Caffeinated Entrepreneur, which I've recently also turned into a podcast with my co-host, Bernie DeSantis. He's my producer. He and I are now doing the men and women side of talking about entrepreneur life. And so it's a very vulnerable, like, I had a meltdown 2 weeks ago in a doctor's office, and here's why, and it's kind of the behind the scenes of me growing my business. It's me just peeling back the curtain.
How did you share? How can people access the podcast?
So the Caffeinated Entrepreneur.
Oh, okay. It's under
is the
that
name of
name.
the podcast.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they
Excellent.
can find it there. They can go to that website.com. But LinkedIn is, if you go to LinkedIn, you'll be able to find me, and all of the things flow out of LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. This was a true joy. And for everyone watching that enjoyed this, in addition to those who want to reach out to Allison, please share this with the men in your life, in this case, even with the women who would want to learn more about Allison's story, which I think is quite admirable. One last thing on the brotherhood, you can always learn about us at menseekingfreedom.com. But the thing I really want to point out now is click the Freedom Brotherhood link at the top. The first and third Tuesdays of every month, we invite men to come join us virtually. We'd love to have you because there's a meeting coming up next week. And you'll learn the real value of getting together with honest, credible men to help each other grow. So thank you, and I'll see you in the next episode.